What is going on, Nuggets Nation, NBA fans? I am Tom Leuthner. Welcome back into Nuggets Today. I apologize if I sound a little sick. Allergies are bothering me a little bit right now, but I still want to get you guys some content out. So let's talk about some things. We're going to steer away from potential trade targets and people who are in the mix until next episode. I may mention a guy here and there, but I want to get into some things I've been thinking about a lot recently and going back and watching. And I think there's ways that people should be going about certain things. And the first person is David Adelman. I know it's not only on him because obviously the GM, whoever that may be, has to come in and make some moves for Denver's bench to be way deeper than it was last year. And maybe, again, like we've been talking about, maybe trade a guy here and there. But the things that I want to talk about are David Adelman now has the chance to be strategic, right? And I know that, again, like I said, there's going to be a few guys that are going to come in. Most likely. Again, it could be a vet here and there. Maybe there's not. Maybe we're sticking with Denver, sticking with the same team as they had last year. The one thing that David Adelman has been talking about is that he does not want to start the season with a set rotation. He wants an 8 to 10 man rotation. And that's something that I'm thinking about pretty heavily. I'm thinking about it pretty heavily because you're watching the playoffs. Obviously, the Thunder in a different spot. They have 13 guys who are playable, 12 guys realistically. You start watching teams like the Pacers and you start watching teams like the Knicks, and these teams are coming out, and later in series, they're playing guys. For the Pacers, they have Ben Shepherd getting some minutes. He's actually coming in and doing what he needs to do. Thomas Bryant and Tony Bradley were able to come in and do what they needed to do. Look at the Knicks. DeLon Wright, Landry Shamet, campaign. They were good with the minutes they got. And I started looking back at Denver, and like I've been talking about earlier, Strawther should have easily been playing way earlier in that series, in my opinion. But you have the opportunity now to come out, have that 8 to 9 man, maybe even 10 man rotation to start the season, and now you adjust what you want, where you want it. I think that's when you come out, and guys I've been covering, Trey Alexander maybe gets a shot here and there. Deron Holmes gets his shot from coming back from an injury. PJ Hall maybe gets a shot here and there. Again, it's all the farm system guys, the guys who are in your organization now, but there's people who can play. I'm not saying these guys are going to be amazing, but if you're not able to go out and sign some people like you should be doing, then why not attempt to get those guys in there and play your minutes strategically? Maybe switch up the starting five here and there throughout the season. I think this core four is amazing. I think it's a top 5 to 7 core four in the NBA, maybe. From Jokic to MPJ, obviously. And then Brown's a great starter. But maybe here and there, switch something up. Maybe get Strawther some starting minutes over Brown. Maybe, again, if they're able to bring some people in, obviously it's going to be a little different. But let's move on here. And like I was just talking, it's going to be a lot of strategy and a lot of figuring out what you're going to do. But we've seen teams guard Jokic a certain way. Teams were built to stop Jokic. One thing is the lack of three-point shooting off Denver's bench or even in their starting rotation. Denver needs to go out. And again, the one guy I want to bring up right now, and this is the only guy I'll talk about that I believe I'll talk about, that I think should probably be a lock for Denver to get on a minimum contract for at least a year, Seth Curry. He's a fantastic shooter, right? Sure, he's maybe a liability on defense, and that's gonna be tough. But Denver needs a sharp shooter to stand in the corner and hit threes when they need threes to be hit, because they don't have that when MPJ isn't healthy. And again, I know that I talked a lot about MPJ and I discredit MPJ for all he's done, but it's because of his injury. So why not go out and get a sharpshooter like Seth Curry? Another guy I'm going to cover later in this episode, Julian Strawther, can be a sharpshooter. He really can. I think he can be, at least. I think he's a fantastic shooter. We saw that he can be that spark. But Denver needs to go out and get guys like that. Get guys who can strictly shoot. I know that we talked Bogdan Bogdanovic last year. He was a trade target for Denver. It didn't work out. His contract's too big. But if you're able to get him for maybe a bench player, young bench player here that helps Denver. And actually, Bogdan struggled in the playoffs against Denver, which is funny. But if you're able to get a shooter, that's what you need to do. So we obviously saw how teams are guarding Jokic. They're playing multiple bigs at once. If you're able to get a faster lineup in there, and I know that Adelman's talking about he wants to slow down their transition basketball for a little while, so play a slower paced game of basketball. That's fine, but at the same time, Denver, whoever the next GM is, has to come in and get those guys who can shoot the ball. play through Jokic, not through Jamal Murray, and get shots open or get shooters open for Jokic because they're going to throw 3 bigs or 2 bigs and a forward on him. Mostly the entire game. Majority of the time, it's going to be 2 bigs and a forward, or a forward guarding Jokic with 2 bigs and help. So you need to get those shooters because that's how you take advantage of things. You look back at the Thunder series, Denver wasn't able to hit threes when they needed the threes hit. They were able to hit them throughout the game, but then in the fourth quarter when somebody needed to hit a 3, they couldn't. Again, and it's a lot of discredit to MPJ that I was very harsh on him for because of the shoulder injury. But why not get a bench shooter? If you could get Seth Curry in, bring him in for 5 minutes at the end of the game, if you need those 5 minutes and you need a couple of threes, he could be the guy that's in there for you. That's why Denver was so good with KCP and Brown off the bench. The next topic I want to hop into, though, is the guy I was just talking about, and that's the potential shooter. The commitment from Julian Strawther, I think, it's amazing. When he was talked to right after David Adelman's presser, he said that he plans to spend majority of his time in Colorado, going home on weekends when he can go home and visit his family. He needs to be in the rotation next year. Like I've been saying, spark plug off the bench when they needed him in Game 6. He played awesome. Came in Game 7. Sure, he didn't make any of his threes, but you're on a limited role now where you played 1 game the entire series. You finally came in, got your minutes. Again, he got hurt last year, and it sort of took away because he was getting minutes with Malone. I think he's proven to be a guy that can now come in, help Denver out. I know that people say he's bad defensively, but from what I've seen, the 4 opportunities that he had to guard Shea, there might have been fouls there that were called that might not have been fouls, but he played good defense. There was a lot of whistles that were blown pre-call just because the refs thought there was going to be a foul, which is a lot we see with Shea at all, but that's not even what I'm talking about. Strawther played good basketball. He deserves to be the 7 or 8 man off Denver's bench next year. If Denver's team, their rotation looks exactly the same right now, I think he deserves to be probably the 7 or 8 man. I think, again, it's probably Russ up there. If Russ is still there, it's going to be Watson. It's going to be Strawther. Those are the guys. And then Deron Holmes will probably be thrown in that mix because they need a backup big, and he's going to be the guy who they're going to have to try to rely on. But I think Strawther is good enough to be what Denver needs. Again, maybe averaging 9 points. All Denver needs is a guy that can come in and give them a consistent 12, and I think that Strawther's that guy, and that's all. I've covered it so much because I truly do think that he is good enough, but the commitment that he is giving to Denver right now, staying in Colorado, his entire summer to work out there and prove that he deserves to be there is what proves that he should be getting a spot in the rotation next year. And don't move on from him. That's how I feel about it. The last thing I want to talk about, especially because we're talking about the commitment, players staying in shape, is key for next year. Denver, with the team, we already know the roster they have now, obviously. You can't afford to come back not in shape. Strictly because your team is lacking those bench minutes right now. We don't know who the GM is, so we don't know if any moves are going to be made that are significant enough to get you some time off the bench. You cannot come back in and not be in shape. You have to be in the best shape possible. I know Jamal Murray, it looked like he was a little tough to get to his spot on defense. Guards were outrunning him. They were faster than him. And they play a fast-paced game, but you cannot afford to be in bad shape if you're playing a fast-paced game because you're going to have to get down the court. Again, I think Watson can, if Watson can develop a little bit more and finish in transition, I think he'll be a major part of Denver's rotation next year, especially if people aren't conditioned. And that's where I think, again, like I've been saying, the rotation comes into play. You can be strategic about it because Peyton Watson can be getting those minutes now over a guy like MPJ if we need transition buckets. I know that Gordon's great, but they both have to come back in shape. Jokic has to come back in shape, especially because we've been lacking a backup big for the last 3 or 4 years now that's actually legitimate. I know that DeMarcus Cousins was good with us. I know that, Mason Plumlee was good with us, but we're not seeing that caliber of a backup big right now. Last guy we saw was Jeff Green, and he played the backup big minutes at 6'9", 6'10", 6'8", whatever height he is, but we may not see that again, so Jokic has to come back and be in the best possible shape ever, strictly if they want to win another finals. Anyway, that's all I got for you guys today. We'll hop into some more trade talk, some more free agent signings next episode, but have a good night. Appreciate you guys.